Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to another Brawl Stars video, and today I'm going to be going into detail about every single map that is going to be in the February Championship Challenge, and there's a lot to keep in mind if you want to be able to get to 15 wins and qualify for the next stage of the tournament. So make sure you watch until the very end of the video so you can understand all these tips that I'm about to give to you guys. With that being said, let's jump right into the first map, which is going to be Minecart Madness, which is the gem grab map, and I have no idea why they picked this for a challenge because this is undoubtedly the most annoying gem grab map that is in the game. However, we are forced to play on it, so we got to figure out how to make the best of it anyway. So for each map, I'm going to give you the best team compositions, the top 5 of those, and then I also combine multiple sources and their listings of the top 5 brawlers by win rate for each of these maps, and I'm just combining them, so that's why there's more than 5, because there's different sites who use different trophy ranges. So overall, across all skill levels, these are going to be the top brawlers individually. And I don't feel the need to give the win rate for those because it doesn't really affect much. They're all really good picks, and it just depends on what you're comfortable with and what fits best in your team composition. So for this map, a lot of the standard gem grab players are going to also be pretty good. Like Carl, he is very good at pursuing anyone who has a lot of gems with his protective pirouette star power. It enables him to go in and remain relatively undamaged, and that is just a super good tactic to have on your team, especially if you make a mistake and you're at a disadvantage. Carl is very good for regaining that advantage in gem grab. Sandy is also super good because he can throw down his super in the center, and your team essentially has entire control over the mine at that point because your opponent really can't see you, so it's super easy to take them out, and once you get control of that mine with his super, the rest of the game becomes pretty easy. So Sandy is also a very, very good option that I strongly recommend if you have him unlocked. Turret brawlers are always pretty good in gem grab as well, just to keep that constant pressure on your opponents and hopefully prevent them from taking over control of the center. So that's why Jessie is up here. She's a bit better because the map is pretty open and the turret is going to be able to hit other brawlers easily, whereas Penny, it's a bit harder to hit brawlers, but it can be placed behind walls, so it's going to be better in maps where Jessie's turret isn't as effective because there are a lot of walls. Also, Rosa is just a really good option for gem grab because she's tanky, she can do a lot of damage, she can charge in during a countdown if necessary with her shield and be able to take out whoever on your opponent's team has those 10 gems. Same with Nita's bear, it's very good to have, and Poco obviously is just really good for that healing. Daryl can charge in, and Mr. P has his super that spawns those penguin drones, so that's also super useful to have. Honestly, all of these 8 brawlers are really good picks, and you can see on the right side, those are the teams that have the highest win percentage for this specific map across all trophy ranges. So you definitely can pick one of those if you want to go with a team comp that has already been proven to be solid, although some of these might be more popular at lower ranges, so maybe they might not be effective for you if you are a high skill player. So I'm going to say that a lot throughout this video. Just go with what you're comfortable with and what you think is going to give you the best advantage in the game. Next up is Penalty Kick, which is the Brawl Ball map, and this is a pretty unique Brawl Ball map. You'll notice that in the center there are some pretty annoyingly placed walls and small patches of grass here and there, which are a bit weird to maneuver, and there's also like 2 layers of walls in front of the goal, which is a bit different from a lot of the other Brawl Ball maps. So some of the choices here definitely need to be targeted towards the specific design of this map. Specifically, you're going to want wall breakers on your team, because once you can get rid of that first layer of walls, there's a straight shot into the goal. But if you don't get rid of those first walls, you have to go around those walls, then around the next set of walls, and then finally you'll get a straight shot at the goal. So it's definitely a high priority to get rid of those walls early on in the game if you want to give yourself an advantage later on. Now, some of these team comps don't include a wall breaker, and not just because the rest of their team is just so aggro that they mainly try to get goals through team wiping the opponent. Like you can see, the Daryl, Sandy, and Leon is a very aggressive comp, and so that's why they don't really include a wall breaker, but you just use your best judgment there. These are all really good options on the screen here. Once again, Jessie and Nita, they can spawn stuff, which is always super good to have. Max finally showing up at the top of the leaderboards after her recent buff. That extra speed that you can give to your teammates is very, very useful, as long as you don't just charge in randomly into all 3 of your opponents and die instantly. As long as you play safely and conservatively, you can use that speed to your advantage, and it's very, very helpful to be able to get to the goal quicker. And the rest of the brawlers pretty much have the same explanation as for gem grab. I mean, if they were good in that, they are pretty good in this mode as well. Next up, we have Layer Cake, which is the bounty map. And this, once again, is a bit weird for a bounty map. It's not very open at all, and the walls are in a very weird position, so it's hard to maneuver around this map, and that's why it's very difficult for melee brawlers, simply just because it's hard to move and get close to your opponents. You can see that those stretches of grass and wall stretch across the entire map, one in front of the star and one behind the star, so that's where you are going to stay most of the time. You're going to stay right behind that center of the map, and your opponent's going to stay right behind their center of the map, so you're definitely going to want to run a lot of long range brawlers in order to hit from one side of the grass to the other side of the grass. Melee brawlers are definitely not going to be as effective here. You might think, oh, maybe Daryl would be good because you can just use your super and charge from one side to the other, but there are just so many walls, it's very likely that you're going to hit something and get bounced off track. So I definitely would not recommend to use him. You can see that Mr. P actually shows up in a lot of the compositions here, and I personally haven't used him that much since I haven't unlocked him, so I'm not too sure how his strengths play out in this map, but I can assume he does pretty well since it's a common strategy for your opponents to hide behind those little one tile walls and stuff, and having that extra ability to jump over those walls with your attack is just super useful, and you really can't let your opponents get away, which is always super awesome. You want to prevent them from healing so that way you can take them out, put pressure on them, and that's basically your game plan for the game. Piper finally makes it into the top as well, once again just because she's a long range brawler. Same with Brock and Penny, they're all very good long range brawlers to include on your team for this map. Now up next we've got Pit Stop for Heist, and this is kind of an annoying map as well, honestly. A lot of these maps seem to be very annoying versions of the mode that they are in. Simply because the walls in the center are just kind of weirdly placed. There's like a straight path to the other side, but typically that's going to be blocked off, and if you want to go around, it's just really weird. And there's also walls in front of the safe, which are a bit annoying because now long range brawlers aren't going to be as effective for this map. For these types of heist maps, you want to run a combination of melee brawlers and wall breakers as well. So Bull and Daryl and BB are all going to be very effective, as well as Rosa. She didn't make it into the top 5s on any of the sites I checked, but she did make it into a couple of the top team compositions, and I think that makes pretty good sense. Just all melee brawlers in general are going to be able to defend pretty well and force your opponent to push back whenever they're trying to advance on your safe, and they're just, once you get on the safe, they deal so much damage close up. And Nita and Rico are also going to be pretty good. They're very good at defending by themselves. Nita's bear obviously helps to deal a lot of extra damage, especially if you have the Hyper Bear star power. And Rico is really good, even though long range brawlers typically aren't good on these types of maps. Rico is just so good at defending, and there's a lot of walls for you to take advantage of. That's the main reason why Rico is good here, is because there's the walls to bounce off of. And also Robo Retreat is a very, very good star power that lets you stay alive and keep defending if necessary. And Heist is all about making sure that you're constantly on defense and trying to gain the advantage from killing your opponent before they can kill you, and using that advantage to get closer to the safe. So Rico is very good in achieving that goal. And then obviously Barley and Dynamite are also in the top there because they are throwers. They can just throw right over the wall. They're also pretty good at defending, and that's why Tick isn't up there, because Tick isn't very good at defending at close range if you're ever forced into that situation, which you are a lot of the time in Heist. Whenever the rest of your team dies and the opposing team pushes up on your safe, you're going to want to be able to defend and deal that extra damage. Even though it's not your main priority as a thrower, you will be put into those situations. So Dynamite and Barley are much better fit for that, and that's why you're going to want to run them over Tick for this map. And finally, we have Nuts and Bolts for the Siege map. Hopefully this is a very good map, because this is where I lost in the challenge last time. I made it to 13 wins. Honestly, the siege wasn't the issue. It was the fact that we lost twice in Heist. So hopefully we can be more consistent this time. But this siege map is fairly standard, nothing too different. A lot of walls in the center like always, and because of that, a lot of the common siege brawlers are also going to be good in this map. Rosa is a very, very good siege brawler with her star power that lets you deal extra damage when your shield is activated. That's so good for when you are doing a push with your bot. You can take out your opposing team who is trying to take out your own bot, and that way your bot can get so much extra damage and tank so much more, and that just lets you add up a lot of damage over time. So Rosa is a very, very strong pick for Siege and this map as well, so I definitely recommend her. Also, Sandy is super, super good for Siege. It lets you maintain control of that map and get that advantage in the bolt count, so you're definitely going to want to run him as well. Frank can be pretty good because he can stall out the bot. He can do pretty well when trying to collect bolts. He's pretty tanky, and he can just freeze your opponents, which can let you get that extra advantage when you need it on getting those bolts in the center. So Frank might be a decent option. And then the spawner girls are always really good for siege maps like Jessie and Penny. I know Penny didn't make it up there, but she is also probably pretty good for this map. Even though it's a bit more open and your opponents can take out your cannon pretty easy, she's still pretty good. But Jessie definitely works a bit better because the map is open, so the turret's going to be able to lock onto people a lot more easily and do a lot more damage. So that's why Jessie's up there. Once again, Mr. P is there probably because of his super. You can just spawn it in the back and get that extra bit of damage for the entire game, which just gives you an advantage you need in the center when trying to take out your opponent and gain that advantage for bolts. And then if we take a look at the most successful team compositions, you can see they have super high win rates. So maybe these teams might not be played as often, and that's why they have such a high win rate. So I would be a bit cautious when using these ones in particular, although they do seem fairly decent. I know 2 of them run Spike, which isn't something you see much in Siege, but that definitely could work out. I have seen Spike used by pro players in Siege before, and it can work out pretty well. But some of the team comps definitely look pretty good, so I still would recommend using them. And that wraps it up for the final map. So hopefully you have a better idea of what you're going to go in with for this map. In terms of general tips for the challenge, I would definitely say obviously get a team, get 3 people who you know well and can communicate with over the course of this challenge. It helps significantly in being able to coordinate certain strategies and all of that good stuff. And just play conservatively, don't die, because that has a huge effect on who has the advantage in games. And once you have the advantage, that momentum really keeps it going throughout the entire game. So if you die even once towards the start of the game, you could really lose it for your entire team. So just play conservatively and safely and make sure you don't die at all, even if it comes at the cost of dealing less damage. And I think that will get you pretty far in this game. So with that being said, that is all for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and a comment down below if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. But that's all for today, guys, so see you later.